ancient poets, like modern women, they want to present something as extremely important, which has no importance at all. Hello and welcome back to Nibblepop. We are about to start a whole new series on Alexander Pope's The Rape of the Lock, and this happens to be an introductory video on that. So in this video, we are going to look at the basic theme of the whole thing, what it is about, why was it written, and some very important things which I believe you must know before you begin to read the particular poem. So stay with me till the end of this video because this lecture is going to help you have a proper orientation to understand Alexander Pope's wonderful mock epic, The Rape of the Lock. I am Monami Mukherjee. Welcome once again. If you are a regular subscriber in my channel, you would know that we have already published a video on the neoclassical age, and many of you have already seen it. If you haven't seen it yet, then I would advise you to go after you finish watching this video and watch that video. I'll be giving the link in the description box and if possible in the I button up there too. I have discussed the background of Alexander Pope, the neoclassical age, the conditions under which he wrote, and the general sentiments of people around his time in that video, so that will help you have a good understanding of the context in which Pope was writing. In this video, we are not going to go into these dates and details and number of things that he wrote. We will rather try to look at the man who was writing this and why he ended up writing this particular poem, which is there in your syllabus so many years after it was written. So it is definitely, you can say, a classic of its own style. Alexander Pope was a very unique man. An entire age is known after him, so definitely he was like a huge figure so far as literary context is concerned. But ironically, his personal life and the kind of hardships, the kind of sufferings he faced in his life, in his young life rather, is diametrically opposite to what we actually see through the literature that he's produced. So I'll just give you a few details about him, which might help you have some idea about the man behind the book. Alexander Pope was diagnosed with a very debilitating condition, a condition that was not curable. It was a kind of tuberculosis which affected his spine and stunted his growth, and he ended up feeling that he did not have the kind of body which he would have wanted him to have. Like he was not normal according to the standards of normality. He was quite conscious of that, and he became more and more conscious of his so-called deformity when he saw that women around him. He was very interested in women, like every man is. But they judged him based on their expected standards of manly beauty or whatever that was. He felt that intelligence, wit, those are the things that were not marketable things so far as romance is concerned, and that kind of made him quite bitter towards women, but not all women. There were two girls who he got acquainted with when he was pretty young, and with one of them he actually had a very cordial relationship. It was more than friendship, you can say. Her name was Martha. And why I am telling you all this, because somehow this main character in the poem, The Rape of the Lock, is on one hand a reflection of Martha, everything that is beautiful about her, and also diametrically opposite to Martha, whatever she is not. Maybe after we finish reading, you would understand why I'm saying this now. But just going back to Pope's early days, when he was living in Windsor Forest with his father, maybe at around age of 19, he became quite close to a family who were a Catholic family. Pope himself, he was a Roman Catholic, and this family were the family of the Blounts. There were two daughters there in that Blount family. One was Teresa, who was almost Pope's age, and Martha, who was 2 years younger to him. Pope's friend, John Caryll, he was like a godfather to this Martha. Martha was also called Patty. Her nickname was Patty. Now, this Blount family was somehow related to the family of the Fermors, or the family of the woman whose name was Arabella Fermor, whose story is depicted in this poem, The Rape of the Lock. Now, Arabella Fermor's nickname was Belle, and she was about the same age as Teresa, so almost Pope's age. She was not yet married, like the time when this whole poem was conceived. I'm talking about the year 1712. And she was not a woman of very high fortune, Arabella Fermor. Fermors were high-class society people, but particularly Arabella Fermor and her parents, like they were not very wealthy. So it was her, you can say, aspiration to get married to a man who could fulfill all these economic needs that she was going to have very soon. Now, into this picture comes this person, Lord Peter. Lord Peter is the baron who is depicted in the poem Rape of the Lock. Now, Lord Peter, he didn't have much intention to marry Arabella Fermor, but maybe they had some kind of exchanges, and due to some unexplained reasons, he ended up cutting off a lock of Arabella Fermor's hair, a lock, and he stole it. And there was this massive feud between the two families. They took the whole episode very seriously, and it created a lot of bitterness and at the same time antagonism between the two families. And somehow Pope's friend John Caryll, he wanted things to settle down peacefully. And what else could bring peace if not like laughter, humor? And he suggested to Alexander Pope that why don't you write something to make them feel that they are actually fighting over nothing. It is not something serious at all. So Pope wrote this whole poem in like 2 weeks. It was only 2 cantos in the beginning. Okay. So he wrote the 2 cantos and he sent it to Arabella Fermor for permission for publication, because if you're writing on somebody, based on the life or events happening in the life of somebody, you need their permission to publish. So he sends this manuscript to Arabella Fermor seeking her permission. Arabella Fermor gives permission, and the families involved in the case, they are appreciative of Pope's efforts and they do not cause any kind of hindrance, and Pope goes on to publish. But later, like 1 year later, he revises, adds more cantos to it, and finally brings out the full version. So now we have 5 cantos in the poem, and this later inclusion, the 3 cantos which he included later, they were put in between the first and the last cantos of original work. And these 3 cantos contain something which actually gave this poem an epic dimension. Now, Arabella Fermor, she was not very enthusiastic about the poem because she saw that she was getting the sharp end of Pope's satire, and she was a pretty intelligent woman. You can't call her dumb. She could understand that behind all those words of glory and appreciation of beauty, Pope was actually belittling her ways of life, attitude of life and everything. But she didn't have much of an option because she understood that if she didn't give permission, Pope would end up publishing an unauthorized version anyway. So people would anyway know about the whole thing. So better give permission, make it less hostile so that later Pope doesn't end up becoming more bitter, because people were scared of Alexander Pope, his satire. He used to attack mercilessly anybody who opposed him. And that's natural, because you see, when you see that the world judges you based on your physical attributes, and they hardly realize the kind of worth you have. What do you do with your life then? Do you sit back and wallow in self-pity that, oh, I'm such a loser, nobody loves me, or you just go back and attack the world and you own the world? He owned the whole age. It's the age of Pope, rather. So, humor, banter, satire, these were Pope's weapons against a world which was not ready to understand his worth, and yet who could not ignore him. Now let's come to some very important things which you must know before you start reading the text. First, you need to have a proper understanding of the word mock epic. We have already discussed Paradise Lost, and you have some idea about what an epic is. You also have understandings about different kinds of epics. See, when you were studying about these ancient European epics in your semester 1, epics are long narratives, and they have this grand figure of a hero, grand speeches, supernatural creatures, gods and angels and such things coming and interfering in human life, a role of fate working itself out, and you have a certain kind of heroism glorified. It can be physical heroism, it can be intellectual heroism. Okay, in Milton you have the heroism of the spirit, spiritual heroism. So epics portray a kind of heroism, any kind of, like, it depends on the writer, on a gigantic scale, using epic similes, invocation in the beginning. So all these things are there in an epic. But when you take a story where a man snips off the lock of a woman and then you try to write an epic out of it, the whole effort is so humorous that you produce the opposite effect of an epic. An epic produces, you can say, a reaction of awe. Okay, you get wonderstruck, wow. And in mock epic, since you are mocking not just people or characters in your poem, but also the very style of epic, so you end up with humor and laughter. And what is laughter? I have said this repeatedly in many of my videos, that laughter is a corrective gesture. When we laugh, we think that we are laughing at something, but actually we laugh when we identify something in someone which we have it in us. If we see a person with a particular kind of stupidity and we laugh, it's like we are trying to somehow subconsciously relate that stupidity to some stupidity which we might have, and through that laughter try to amicably correct ourselves. And what comedy does, comic plays, you can say satires, comedy produces a kind of inflated image. We are all human beings, we have our stupidities, all of us we have. But our stupidities are not magnified. Okay, so they are kind of hidden and they emerge at times. Now in any comic scenario, the characters are made to show their stupidities in a magnified form. So they are not like real people, because real people are not that stupid or that comic. But their actions are something which real people do at some point in their life. And therefore, looking at them, when we laugh, we immediately connect that particular action to the actions we do in our lives. And then we say, okay, I'm laughing at this guy, so I'm actually laughing at myself. We don't do it consciously, but subconsciously. And it creates a kind of a corrective effect, on you. This is how comedy is instructive as tragedies are. Now, when Pope takes the form of an epic and places it, or rather places within it, the story of a very non-serious content, he is trying to tell us that, see, you people are obsessed about these stupid things, which actually mean nothing, but you consider them as important as the Battle of Troy or Journey of Odysseus, because you people have no other work to do. And then he talks about women who spend hours in front of their dressing table mirrors, who see themselves reflected in Belinda. He talks about men who pray to the god of love, and he actually has an altar made of these French novels and these tokens from his lovers. And that magnified image of stupidity is very much similar to things which we do actually in our lives. Because, falling in love is the most stupid thing we do when we are young. And we do stupid things when we fall in love. And then we laugh. And then we realize that, okay, Pope is not just making fun of Belinda or the Baron. Pope is making fun of me. And then I get angry at Pope. But then if I'm laughing, I can't be angry. I might end up correcting myself. So that is why Pope reaches out to us across the ages, down the ages, and is still relevant because the kind of life which he portrays in this poem, maybe that life was something that belonged to the 18th century England specifically, but the essential things, the fundamental follies means stupidities, foibles, not flaw. Flaw is something which ends up in a tragedy. Flaw is like serious mistakes which are there, inside you, dark things. That is flaw. This is more like foible, little harmless things which make you look dumb. And Pope attacks this dumbness because he is a worshipper of wit. Just like Wordsworth is a worshipper of nature, Pope is a worshipper of wit as much as the metaphysical poets were. And so, he can't stand stupidity of any form. Therefore, the vehicle of mock epic, it's a kind of satire in verse, you can say, he finds the utterance that he's looking for. And why was mock epic getting popular during the times? That is because this was a time when the middle class people, they were emerging in England. Again, I've discussed all this, but I'm just going over the important points here. Rise of the middle class meant that there were more readers who were interested in not heroic epics, talking about military exploits and wars and such things, but things that were talking about common sense, everyday life, things that would help them unwind at the end of a tiring office work day. And therefore, this rise of periodical journals, that led to a kind of readership that Pope catered to, and that kind of gave Pope the exposure he needed. And his readership, therefore, was the readers who were interested in things like satires and works based on common sense and wit. Now, coming to the characters in the poem, after I finish the textual reading of the cantos, I would definitely take up topics like the portrayal of Belinda, features of mock heroic epic, how does Pope use the supernatural elements in his poem. So I will take these up. How is 18th century society reflected in the poem? So these are the four main questions which we will be addressing after we complete the textual reading. But I would like you to know about one more thing before we go for our formal reading of the poem. And that thing is the Rosicrucian doctrine, based on which Pope created this magical world of supernatural beings who are a very important part in the poem. What is Rosicrucian doctrine? There was this novel, kind of a novel, more like a satire, by the French writer de Villers, and the name is La Comte de Gabalis. I hope I got that pronunciation right, whatever that is. Anyway, so there he satirizes the Rosicrucian system. The Rosicrucians believe that this whole creation or this whole universe is made up of four elements. This is a very common thing in many other religions as well. And these four elements are air, water, fire and earth. So these four elements, they make up this creation. And they also believe that there are these invisible angelic forms, supernatural beings who reside in these four elements. And these four kinds of supernatural creatures are the sylphs, who stay in the air, who are the guardian angels in air. Then you have the nymphs, who swim around in the ocean, that is, they belong to the world of water. We have salamanders, who belong to the world of the fire. And then we have gnomes, who belong to earth, and they are considered to be the protector of wealth, hidden deep inside earth and all, because this earth is considered to be a mine of wealth. So these are the four different kinds of elements. Now Pope takes this Rosicrucian doctrine, adopts this, and in a way he just changes it a bit too, alters it a bit. And because he is writing a mock epic, he doesn't present them in a very serious way at all. For example, when he talks about the gnomes, he makes them look very mischievous, almost evil-minded. And we have this feeling that Pope tries to establish a connection between the human world and the world of these creatures. And in that connection, he tries to establish something humorous. Now, it was believed that you could connect to these creatures if you led a chaste life. What is a chaste life? Well, if you don't have sex with somebody. So, if you are a virgin and you control your inner desires to be physically intimate with someone, then you could be in direct connection with these airy creatures or these supernatural creatures. Pope, in his poem, he further adds that women, after their death, depending on their nature and attitude in lifetime, they are transformed into one of the four kinds of supernatural beings. And this whole thing is given in details. Okay, so when we will read the text, we will actually discuss all these things. But the gist of the matter is, he creates a world of sylphs interacting with a world of humans, and in that interaction, we see that there is a lot of glorification. He tries to establish it like a divine connection with, saints and gods. But this whole thing is based on such a dumb idea that it actually evokes laughter. So you can generalize these sylphs as Belinda's alter ego, because they kind of represent whatever she gives importance to. And for Belinda, it is very important to remain a virgin, because then she can continue this relationship. But she is not very sure about the whole thing, because she doesn't have the faintest idea about sylphs and stuff. Now the problem of this poem is, we get confused between the kind of woman Belinda is and the kind of woman Arabella Fermor was. Now the name Belinda definitely comes from Bell, which comes from Arabella. Belinda is Arabella, and that is why Pope asks for her permission before he publishes the work. But Arabella Fermor is a human being and Belinda is a goddess of a world which is fragile and not like the world of Achilles of Troy. It's not that actually serious world. She's a goddess in front of a dressing table. So I will first take you through the letter, or rather the first part of this poem, where we have the letter from Alexander Pope, and this letter will give you some kind of orientation about what to expect from this poem. So I'm just reading. If you are curious, I really like this particular version, which is Worldview Critical Editions, and it is edited by Harriet Raghunathan. And I will try to give you a link in the description box if it is available in Amazon. This book not only has the text with annotations, but also has very good critical essays, especially on important topics which come for university exams and college exams. And these answers, or rather these articles in this book, are not just, guidebook standard answers, but very good, well-researched articles. So my recommendation is definitely, for this book. And I'm sure you will find this in your local bookstores, and if not there, you can always check that up on Amazon. I will give that link in the description. So I'll just start reading here. The Rape of the Lock, an heroic comical poem in 5 cantos. So that is how it is subtitled. And then there is this couple of lines. Nolurium Belinda tos violare capillars, se juvat hoc precibus me tribuce tuis. I am definitely sure that I have made innumerable pronunciation mistakes while reading these 2 lines because they are not in English. So I'm really sorry. If you translate this, it is, I was loth, Belinda, to violate your locks, but I am pleased to have granted that much to your prayers. Is this guy sorry for violating Belinda's locks or not sorry? We don't know because it's pretty confusing statement here. Then he writes to Mrs. Arabella Fermor. We usually call somebody Mrs. when that person is married, that woman is married to someone. But Arabella Fermor, clearly, while receiving this letter, she was not yet married. So it was a practice to address women as Mrs. if they belong to high class society as a mark of respect. And he says, Madam, I will be in vain to deny that I have some regard for this piece. So I have written this piece of work since I dedicate it to you, and I am really very proud of this work. I really consider this work to be very good because I have dedicated it to you. Yet you may bear me witness it was intended only to divert a few young ladies. So now he's talking about the reason for writing this book, that he wanted to divert young ladies because young ladies are usually obsessed with things which are of no importance. Not only at their sex's little unguarded follies. Unguarded follies means the mistakes, the stupidities which women have in them, which are not guarded, which they are not conscious of. I wanted them to notice those things and get diverted from it, but at their own, so they should laugh at their own follies. But as it was communicated with the air of a secret, now he is giving her some words of almost, blackmail. That see, I have written this work, and since it's a secret thing, therefore everybody knows about it, because, when something is a secret, then everybody knows it. So this book is already kind of known to people, and he actually means that even if she doesn't give him permission, this publisher would publish it anyway, and he will publish a version which is not even checked by Arabella Fermor. So that might be worse for her. So better you check this version and you give your permission. That's his message here. An imperfect copy having been offered to a bookseller, you had the good nature for my sake to consent to the publication of one more correct. So you have given me permission to kind of publish this correct version. This I was forced to before I had executed half my design, for the machinery was entirely wanting to complete it. Now this particular letter was written after he planned to include the whole concept of the sylphs and the supernatural beings, that is inserting the 3 cantos, in between the first and the last canto. And therefore he says that I now intend to add some more things, and then he explains to Arabella Fermor everything about these sylphs and their world, this Rosicrucian doctrine. And notice the kind of language he uses here. The machinery, madam, is a term invented by the critics to signify that part which the deities, angels or demons are made to act in a poem. Now, machinery normally we associate this word with machines and engines and things made of metals, but here in context of literature, specifically epics, machinery means the part which supernatural things, that can be gods, that can be demons, that can be angels, they play in a play. And why are they called machineries? Actually, it comes from the word deus ex machina, and usually in case of drama, all these supernatural creatures, they were put inside the stages by means of some special pulleys or some special lofts. So some special machineries were used to put these characters on stage. Maybe that's why this word machinery got stuck with this whole thing, or maybe because of this whole thing the word machinery comes, which means you use instruments to produce some kind of effect. For the ancient poets are, in one respect, like many modern ladies. Now he's comparing ancient poets with modern ladies. Why? Because let an action be never so trivial in itself, they always make it appear of the utmost importance. So he says that ancient poets, like modern women, they want to present something as extremely important, which has no importance at all. So what he is doing, he is not only making fun of modern ladies, but also ancient poets. So in one sentence, he dismisses the ancient poets and the modern ladies. Wow. And then he says, these machines I determined to raise on a very new and odd foundation. So I'm going to use this whole machinery of supernatural things by introducing something very new. What new? The Rosicrucian doctrine of spirits. I'm going to use the Rosicrucian doctrine of spirits, the philosophy of the Rosicrucians as my machinery. And this word Rosicrucian, this sounds very weird, at least to Arabella Fermor, who was probably not acquainted with it. And Pope writes, I know how disagreeable it is to make use of hard words before a lady. So Pope is actually being very, very sarcastic about women, and he says that women should not be attacked with words like this, because women are soft creatures. When you use hard words like Rosicrucian, machinery, they will feel scared. So what is Pope doing? He's not just satirizing this woman Arabella Fermor, he is generalizing the whole of womankind. And okay, I should be pretty angry at that man for writing like this about women, but I don't know, maybe women around him deserve that kind of attack from him, seeing how they treated him, how they actually prioritized stupid things like physical beauty and codes of normality which they had. So I am not here to judge Pope. I am here to tell you how Pope judged the world. Okay, so now he is explaining to Arabella Fermor what this Rosicrucian means. The Rosicrucians are a people I must bring you acquainted with. The best account I know of them is in a French book called Le Comte de Gabalis, which both in its title and size, now he is again making fun of women. See, pay attention. This book, Le Comte de Gabalis, this looks like a novel. Both in its title and size is so like a novel that many of the fair sex have read it for one by mistake. Now he is trying to say that because it looks like a novel, because women are not interested in anything else but novels, and novels back then were, in their rudimentary stages, and especially French novels. He actually mentions a novel in The Rape of the Lock too, as called the Atlantis, pure trash. And he says that because women end up reading only novels, and Le Comte de Gabalis actually looks like a novel and it sounds like a novel, so maybe women have read it. So he is again hitting at women here. According to these gentlemen, the four elements, as I was telling you, he also mentions here, the four elements are inhabited by spirits, and they are called sylphs, gnomes, nymphs and salamanders. The gnomes or demons of earth delight in mischief. So this is what Pope adds. But the sylphs, whose habitation is in the air, are the best conditioned creatures imaginable. So he is clearly putting them on a hierarchy of goodness, you can say, and sylphs are considered to be the most delightful, most happy, most fun-loving and most agreeable of all these four creatures. For they say any mortals may enjoy the most intimate familiarities with these gentle spirits upon a condition. You can have a relationship with these spirits upon a condition. What condition? An inviolate preservation of chastity. As I was saying, that you need to be a virgin. You have to abstain from any sexual relationship. As to the following cantos, all the passages of them are as fabulous as the vision at the beginning. So he says that in Canto 1, which you have already read, there is a vision, and in Canto 2, 3, 4, which I have added, I have actually executed the same thing, so I am sure you will like them. The human persons are as fictitious. Now that's like a disclaimer. Whenever there is a series coming up on Netflix or a movie, you see the disclaimer that it's all based on fictitious characters. Okay, nobody living or dead are linked, and then at times people also say that they are based on true stories, but names of the characters have changed. So Pope is also giving a kind of a disclaimer here, but actually saying that, see, it's about you. It's about you, Arabella Fermor. How he's doing that, let's see. And the character of Belinda, as it is now managed, resembles you in nothing but in beauty, which means that all other things I have told about Belinda is imaginary. It has nothing to do with you. The only thing that is connected is her beauty. Why is he doing this? Because the only thing which he presents in a positive light is Belinda's beauty. Her wit, her intelligence, her actions are all made fun of. And therefore, to remain on the safe side, he is saying that, see, I've only taken your beauty as a model for Belinda's beauty. Everything else is made up. If this poem had as many graces as there are in your person, now Pope is saying that if his poem is as good as Arabella Fermor is, or in your mind, yet I could never hope it should pass through the world half so uncensored as you have done. When he is using the word uncensored, it means that Belinda, or rather Arabella Fermor, she has many flaws in her, very mistakes or stupidities in her, dumbness in her. But she manages to pass through this world uncensored, which means she is not boycotted. People don't boycott her. People don't exclude her. Now, Pope's work might be as full of flaws and stupidity as Arabella Fermor. But Pope feels that Arabella Fermor is not facing any social boycott, but his work might face. So, in a way, he is trying to attack the whole society. Pope feels that Arabella Fermor, the model behind Belinda, can get away with everything because she is beautiful. But his poem can be accepted only if it has merit. And then he finally says, but let its fortune be what it will, mine is happy enough to have given me this occasion of assuring you that I am, with the truest esteem, madam, your most obedient, humble servant. So much courtesy. And if a person like Alexander Pope showers you with courtesy, you must remember that this is not what he actually means. But Pope was actually pretty courteous when it came to women. When we will read through the text, we would notice where he departed from the Rosicrucian doctrine, the original doctrine, things which he reinvented here, and the way he is presenting the beauty of Belinda, her life, the society in which she lived. All these things will be there. We will first do a very thorough reading of the first 3 cantos, because those 3 cantos are earmarked in most universities. In Canto 1, we will be introduced to Belinda and her morning ritual, how she gets up, gets dressed. In Canto 2, we will be introduced to the supernatural creatures and how they interact with the world of humans, different kind of roles assigned to them, and the way Belinda spends her time. We'll get some more information on that. And in Canto 3 comes the climactic episode where this lock of hair is clipped off by the Baron. So we can say that the main action of the play that ends with Canto 3, and then we have the reaction which comes in Canto 4 and 5. So I will look forward to a lively session with you when we go through a line by line reading of the first canto in the video that's going to come up right after this one. As a word of advice, go to my video on neoclassical age so that you have a clear understanding of the context in which Pope was writing. If possible, get hold of the text of The Rape of the Lock. I will try to give a link to a Gutenberg version, that is the online version, because it's a very old text. It's available online anywhere. You can have PDFs all the time. But if it is possible for you, try to get hold of Harriet Raghunathan edition or any other standard edition. Because when you have a book with you, it gives you a lot of control over the whole topic. You can flip the pages and try to mark things down. It helps me, at least on a personal level. So I prefer sitting down with books, actually physically scribbling notes in there. So it might work for you as well. So whenever possible, try to grab some books. I have also written a couple of articles on this particular poem, Rape of the Lock. I will give you the links in the description box. There is an article on Portrait of Belinda, but I will advise you to read those articles after we finish the textual reading. Alright, so thank you so much for being here with me. I wish to see you all very soon in the next video of the series on The Rape of the Lock by Alexander Pope. This is Monami Mukherjee signing off. Stay happy, stay subscribed. Bye-bye.